1 of Book 2, Chapter 2, Section 1. Situation 1. The United States is an automobile society. Whether you drive, walk, or take a ride, you become part of the traffic flow. Operating a vehicle in the network of transportation, a driver turns into an active player in the arena of automobile versus automobile, automobile versus pedestrian, and pedestrian versus pedestrian interactions. The particular. Ali Baba drives his daughter to school every morning. He must leave no later than 7:15 a.m. to get her to school before 8 a.m. On a regular weekday, Ali Baba leaves at 7:13 a.m. Right out of his driveway, he is forced to yield to a delivery truck, costing him 30 seconds. When he is merging onto the freeway, he's cut off on the on-ramp while in the carpool lane, which causes him to slam on his brakes. Ali Baba wasn't able to merge onto the freeway due to 3 large trucks warding him off, one after the other. This caused him to miss entry into the carpool lane. He since lost 5 to 7 minutes off his drive. Ali Baba just missed the green light and was the first to stop behind a stoplight on the exit ramp. This caused him to wait 2 minutes before the next green light. Ali Baba was pushed behind a car whose driver suddenly changed direction, which caused him to miss another green light. This cost him 2 more minutes. Ali Baba sat behind the courteous driver at a green light, who let other drivers pass through, causing him to miss yet another green light. Ali Baba then drove behind a string of slow-moving vehicles. When he changed lanes to a faster lane, he discovered an illegally parked car, which was causing the traffic jam. Now on the road to his child's school, Ali Baba had to stop twice. Once for a car backing out of a driveway, and again for a car blocking 1/3 of his way to the left to turn left onto the other side of the road. With all these hassles and mishaps, Ali Baba reached his daughter's school by 8:20 a.m., causing her to be tardy and missing homeroom. Upon dropping his daughter off at school, Ali Baba rushed to his appointment for an annual physical examination. However, since he was more than 30 minutes late, he had to reschedule it for 3 months later. The discriminator. The traffic jam is a public arena where moving subjects and objects negotiate and compromise on the right of way for passage. In the time frame of his navigation through the traffic on that regular weekday, Ali Baba ran into a row of discriminators whose randomly released forces happened to accumulate systematically at him in a conversion of pool of effects. It is apparent that participating subjects and objects in the traffic arena must follow the rules, observe codes of conduct, and keep their legitimate space. They can change from normal players to discriminators instantly. The traffic system itself may also be set up in a way to discriminate one group of traffic participants against another.
I am Ricardo Bello, and I will be doing Chapter 2, Situation 1, Part 2, The Victim. Self-conscious victims are created when discrimination takes place systematically, consistently, or in considerable severity, leaving them with a clear sense of victimization, unfairness, and injustice. The episodes in his journey through the traffic arena include being forced to give up his right-of-way or applying the brake pedals repeatedly or suddenly, which results in loss of time, deprivation of privileges, damage to the vehicle, pressure to the nerve, injury to the body, or a combination of all. Forgivable stressors to life from time to time may crystallize into medical conditions. Increased heartbeats in traffic on that typical morning can develop into hypertension, heart illness, or other physical problems years later. The compromise. In the traffic arena, there is not much compromise that he could make with his direct discriminator to regain a fair position or minimize loss of each discriminatory situation in which he was forced. Participants can turn into discriminators at one occasion while serving as unwilling victims at another. However, a sense of compromise seems to remain present all the time in the mind of each participant in the traffic arena. He had a sense of compromise which helped him understand and sympathize with the actions of other participants. If he did not have a sense of compromise, he would likely honk his horn, follow a discriminator, launch some kind of revenge against the person or vehicle, which can lead to fights, collisions, and larger loss of time. The universal. In the traffic arena, individual participants are supposed to adequately operate a vehicle, follow traffic rules, exercise personal cautions, observe social etiquettes, and show mutual respect. Discrimination in the traffic arena seems to be target unspecific, as the vehicle serves as a shield which makes the participant feel that he or she can discriminate against others as he or she does not face others directly. Individual reactions to discrimination in the traffic arena may range from revenge, road rage, and compromise to withdrawal. Rare acts of revenge lead to confrontation, road rage, and violence. Discrimination will occur in the traffic arena, but it is possible to lessen, decline, or become unnoticeable if a culture of civility, law, patience, and mutual respect prevails among the general public.
Hi, my name is Nicole, and I'll be explaining the particular section of Situation 2 in the second chapter. So, to start off, Situation 2 begins by describing how having a lunch break is a very important ritual for professionals in their work environment, and how during the lunch break, one refuels their body and refreshes their mind so that they can remain productive for the rest of their workday. It also continues to describe or explain how each individual may have a different experience during their lunch breaks, and depending on what they choose to do with their hour break, it varies. So, the particular begins by introducing a character or a person named Alibaba and how every day on his lunch he has a few things he usually does. So he has 3 things that he usually does in his hour break, and those would be 1, mailing a letter in the post office located a block away, 2, making a payment at the bank across the street, and 3, having lunch at an eatery close by. He usually does this every day during his lunch break, okay? So let's go ahead and begin with his experience at the post office. Every day Alibaba goes to lunch at 12 o'clock noon sharp. He leaves the office and arrives at the post office 5 minutes later. On this particular day, he's about the 8th person in line and is waiting patiently for the next available representative to take him. So he waited about 15 minutes before he reached the front of the line. And once he began to explain to the representative what he wanted to accomplish with his visit, he noticed that right away his attendant left and he was unaccompanied and taken care of. So, meanwhile, he notices that 2 or 3 other people were helped before he even finished getting what he needed done at that particular visit. Okay, so Alibaba finally steps out of the post office at around 12:25 p.m. Keep in mind that he only has an hour break for lunch and he still has 2 more things to do for the day. So, conveniently, the bank is across the street, so he shoots over there, and once he goes inside, there's already a line of people waiting to be helped. A bank representative then walks to the line and asks if any customer came in for non-cash transactions. Alibaba, being one of those people, raises his hand and was led by the representative toward an office cubicle. So once he gets to the cubicle, he figured things were going to go smoothly, he would be out of there in no time, but ironically, things didn't go that way. The representative began by making him feel comfortable, sitting him down, discussing things like common workplaces where she used to work, basically taking her sweet time to get things done for him when he only really needed 2 small transactions that could be done in a matter of 5 minutes, or at least he hoped. So, she began to introduce him products that from the bank and things like that, and he's just thinking to himself, like, can I just leave? So after that, it probably took him 15 minutes longer than he should have been there, and he left at 12:50 p.m. when he was finally finished, okay? Now, 2 things are out of the way, and he still hasn't got anything to eat on his break. So, in an attempt to have something to eat in the last 10 minutes, he grabs a sandwich and a drink from the convenience store on his way home, or on his way back to the office. And he's about to begin his eating when he gets an unexpected phone call and is then called to an emergency meeting So he ended up he wasn't really sure how the rest of the day was going to pan out and if he would ever even have a chance to eat his food. So I guess in these three situations, we kind of can observe how on a daily basis things change and you expect to get certain things done in a short amount of time, but there are a lot of different factors that can influence those things. And so I think that was the point of the situation. So from there, we're going to move on to the next section in this situation and see what is, to learn from there. Okay, thank you.
My name is Stephanie, and I'm doing part of Situation 2. Working class. Working class customers use lunch breaks to do their banking, mailing, and other business needs. When service agency open fewer windows for customer service during the peak hours, they hold a de facto discrimination against many of their clients. Institutional discrimination include the postal service and the bank branch. Many service agencies defy the logic of business, becoming undisguised discriminators against their clientele. Service lines are long, leaving customers nervous, worried, and stressed. When service agencies close their offices at the same time as other institutional establishments, many working-class customers have to call in sick, take off a whole day of work, or leave a job early just to attend some simple yet necessary matters in life. Service agents who neglect their customers, they lodge actual discrimination against innocent customers who are in need of service. For him, individual discriminators involved, customer service agent who talked to each of his clients unnecessarily on non-transaction matters, another who left him waiting, another who was supposed to be quick but instead gave him sell pitches. There are also discriminatory agents in the field of customer service who like showing off their sociable or popular personality. Individual discriminators. The customer who kept changing her mind acted discriminatorily against him and all the other customers who were waiting. It is not uncommon in the field of customer service that one customer makes many of the other customers wait longer. Occasionally, there are even pranksters who intentionally take time from customer service agents with unnecessary questions or orders when they see a long line behind. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jennifer, and I'm going to be talking about the victim. For example, in the field of customer service, a discriminatory or victimizing act can spread from one customer to another. The first type of victim is a general victim. For example, a talkative postal clerk that annoys everyone with unnecessary chatter that holds up the line. The second type of victim is direct victim, a customer that keeps tearing up one form after another. The agent that has to explain one procedure after another, spending more time than should be needed. The third one, specific and direct victim. The postal clerk who called Alibaba forward, then left him waiting at the counter. 4. Indirect and general. The customers waiting behind Alibaba are victims. The compromise. Alibaba made a series of compromises with individual agents, agencies, and services. Individual level. He could have asked the talkative postal clerk to focus on their job, but he kept his conformity to normality. Level of agency. Alibaba could have walked out of the line if he had not compromised. Service. Uncompromising person could pledge to themselves that they will never use commercial or non-commercial services again because he or she is fed up waiting in that type of line. The universal. It is common for a person to wait in line for commercial and non-commercial services, both in public and non-public agencies. One may feel discriminated against by customer service agents if they are incompetent, plainly inconsiderate, or deliberately sluggish. In reaction, one can show disrespect, express anger, feel a customer complaint, or take avoidance. In the service line, one can feel discriminated by fellow customers who jump in line, who ask too many questions, who take too much of the service agent's time because of confusion, carelessness, and stupidity. Preserved or potential discriminators. Customers are likely to act collectively by keeping the waiting line tight and straight so other people do not cut in line. Compromise. People will wait in line, and very rarely will a customer challenge a service clerk because the line is moving slowly.
Part of it. So we begin with like people are so overwhelmed with work or stress that they actually forget to have time for time to relax. So vacations, hobbies, watching sports, going to concerts, all this helps us, the people, rejuvenate ourselves and get away from all the problems that we have. So, and it also gives you an enrichment of life. So we begin with the particular, and that's the beginning where Alibabi, that's his name, has a family, a wife and 2 kids. They plan a event to go see a Chapoon. 2 people perform, and the day of the event, Alibaba takes half the day of work, and his wife actually requests the whole day. She doesn't go to work at all, and in fact takes time. It's a special day. They're gonna go have fun, so she goes to a beauty salon, and after that goes picks up her daughter, and then they meet up with their oldest son who goes to college. So when this happens, they're all excited. They're all ready to go to the concert, the event, and they have to drive an hour and a half through traffic. And once they get there kind of early, an hour early, and they have time, to go eat, park, and be seated. So during this time, the event was supposed to start at 6:30, and at 6:45, the host comes out and announces that 2 main performers of the Chapoon will not be able to perform. So a lot of people's reactions were just mad and upset, and because they paid for a event and they're not even getting the full experience. So a lot of people left, got mad, yelled, but Alibaba and his family stayed seated. They didn't do anything. We move into this discriminator, and we have primary and secondary preparators. The primary is the 2 performers. Their obligation is to go to the event. Theirs and the sponsors. They made a tour, and they plan to perform, and then to not show up. That's very very unresponsible on their part. So they should at least have another backup plan or be prepared for situations like this when they can't make the event. And the secondary preparator is the organizers of the event. So they're supposed to keep in contact with the Chapoon and make sure everything's ready, everything's good. But they didn't notify the people until. So the organization and the venue is responsible for notifying the audience of changes in the program. And if they can't give them the full refund, at least give them like a coupon for the next event or whatnot. So we move on to the victims. So the victims in this case were Alibaba and his family, because for one, Alibaba took half a day off work, so he didn't get paid. The wife took a full day off work with no pay. She spent unnecessary money at the beauty salon because she was preparing for the event. She didn't even get to see the people she wanted to see. They had to pay parking, they had to pay for the tickets, and plus that they had to pay the overprices at the stadium for food. So they just spent a lot of money, and then the hassle of having to drive there and come back, the gas money, all that. So the biggest loss, however, wasn't financially. They actually prepared for this event for months, and for the 2 performers to not be there, they kind of just have regret. They're gonna have regret in their minds. And Alibaba and his family are just one example of all the people that go through this. An example of this is it affects others different ways. Let's say a person actually has seen this Chapoon before, they wouldn't be so bad. Oh, 2 of them showed up, but I seen them before. and the people who lived there near there, it probably wasn't a big loss, or probably it just for a lot of people it might not have been a big deal but for Alibaba and his family it was. So, yeah.
Hi, my name is Jose, and I'll be doing the second part of Situation 3. The compromise in this case was that many people were affected negatively because the two leads of the show did not show up. The complaints were evident since the show wasn't what everyone expected it to be. The troupe and the organizer had to do a lot of explaining to the audience, which essentially made them look guilty and made them look bad to the audience. An apology would have eased some of the regret the people had going to the show and showing up and not getting what they expected, but they would also have left the audience with a bad taste. The fact that they did not cancel the event was helpful, because if they would have canceled it, then people would have made trips to the event, to the venue, and not have gotten a show, which would have made them look even worse, or just waste more time and more money arriving there. To conclude, the troupe and the organizer of the venue looked bad for giving people a performance that they were not expecting to receive. In the other, Alibaba was also a victim because he showed up to a show that he did not want to see. He wanted to see the full event, the full show, what he paid for, and he received something else, some watered down show. The Universal, the concert shows, performances are very popular in this contemporary era. Therefore, many people could fall as victims, as what happened to Alibaba. Many people who consider themselves fans have suffered time, monetary, and emotional loss due to what happened at the show, that the leads did not show up. They were irresponsible, or for whatever reason had happened, they did not show up. Therefore, they affected the audience and everyone around them. The reputation of the troupe may also be affected and could have caused the organizers not to find it easy to be hired at venues. So, for example, if I give my word and I have a contract with the venue that I will show up and perform fully and to the best of my abilities, and at the end I don't show up, and half of my crew shows up and they end up doing whatever they can to do to save the show, that would affect me negatively, because they would not want to hire me in any more venues. In conclusion, the troupe may lose more than just the tickets, or the money for the tickets, but something more important, which is the followers they have accumulated over the certain amount of years or period of time. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Daniela, and I'll be covering Situation 4. Text from Textbook 2, Chapter 2, the first half. Basically, the interstate society has become more open for participation by the common people in the contemporary era. Some examples: in democratic countries where ordinary people can voice their opinions and concerns on such things as specific affairs, social issues, and public policies. On the part for the particular, a situation basically states or begins with Alibaba preparing for a community meeting on a new development project, which he has marked on his calendar for about a month ago. To prepare for the meeting, Alibaba reads books, visits websites, compares statistics, and even writes down some things he might say at the meeting. He sat in the in order to make it to the meeting on time at 7, he has to skip dinner and go straight from work to the meeting. He sits in the 5th row of a 250-person auditorium with 150 people in attendance. After the series of presentations by city planners and council members finished, they opened up the meeting for public discussion, in which residents could ask questions or make a statement about the project. A moderator stood in the front of the stage to choose who would speak and how long that speaker would be allowed to talk. Alibaba raised his hand soon after the discussion began. However, for some reason, the moderator ignored Alibaba for quite a number of turns. People behind and even next to him were being chosen over him, even though he had raised his hand before them. It wasn't until people started noticing and began hand directing at him that he got chosen to speak after waiting so long to do so. Alibaba then stood up when he was chosen and presented his points of view using different sources he gathered from his study. The audience was quite impressed and nodded in agreement to some of his points of views. However, mid-presentation, the moderator abruptly interrupted Alibaba, asking him to stop because of the time limit placed on each speaker. Although there was actually 3 speakers who went over beyond the limit on how much one can speak before him. One speaker who went on over the limit, but the moderator didn't intervene at all. Another who ignored the moderator and continued, and the third who asked for more time and was granted some, as opposed to when Alibaba asked for more time, who was denied more time. In the part of the discriminator, clearly the one and only discriminator in the situation was the moderator, because he purposely ignored Alibaba. While at the community meeting, he chose speakers who showed their intent to speak later or with less effort than Alibaba. As a moderator, one is supposed to be fair, open, and objective. Should be able to treat everyone the same and pick speakers based on the time they raise their hand to speak. In the case of the time limit, moderators should allow speakers to freely express their ideas if time allows, should impose a time limit without exception if time is tight, and may also grant an extension when there is some leeway on time. In the case of Alibaba, the moderator committed discrimination against him by interrupting mid-speech but allowing others to ramble on, and rejecting Alibaba's request for a little bit more time to finish, but allowing another speaker double the time. In the real world, there is no lack of moderators like this. Like the one who treated Alibaba badly, they act unprofessionally and incompetently by discriminating some while benefiting others in things such as academic explorations or public debates. Some moderators pick their colleagues, friends, or superiors first. Some also choose people of their own position or points of views, and many even use sex, gender, ethnicity, or physical appearance as a key variable for their choices. Basically, overall, majorities have their way all the time, whereas minority groups often stay in the shadows. And that's for the first half of Situation 4. Thank you.
Everyone, my name is Marie Borbas, although I go by Mimi, and I'm going to be going over the second part of Situation 4. I'm going to be starting with the victim. The victim is clearly Alibaba, poor guy, and it is even recognized by others in the meeting that he is the victim. It's very clear. There's not really much that we can debate about that. And as we all know, trying to do something over and over and over and keep being shut down, it's really exhausting. When you're trying to raise your hand to answer a question in class, when you're trying to suggest to your parents something, when you keep trying to pitch an idea and you keep getting shot down, it's really exhausting, both physically and mentally. He wasn't allowed to finish his presentation, so he was clearly the victim. His argument was not fully explained, and therefore it didn't achieve his goal of providing a alternative point of view to the other people at the meeting. And because his presentation was cut short, the audience didn't get a clear idea of what he wanted to say. And this possibly helps to reinforce the moderator's position by confirming that Alibaba shouldn't have been allowed to speak anyway. Because he couldn't finish his argument, it seemed incomplete or incoherent, and so people say, like, oh, well, he shouldn't have been allowed to speak anyway, maybe the moderator was right. And the last aspect of Alibaba's victimization is that the motive was not clear for his discrimination. Alibaba, he didn't know why he was brushed off and not given equal treatment. It was because of his status as an ethnic minority, which is unfortunate. Even though the forum was supposed to be open to all community members, regardless of race, class, gender, etc., he wasn't given an equal opportunity to. And this creates double victimization, which means that you feel victimized twice, because not only was he being victimized by being treated differently, he didn't know why he was being treated differently. So it's just, doubly hard. The compromise is the next aspect of the situation. And first we'll go over the alternative, what Alibaba could have done, and then we'll go over the consequences. So he could have asserted his right to speak by making it clear that he felt intentionally passed over. He could have yelled. He could have, said, "Excuse me, jerk. It's my turn to speak." He instead waited patiently and, left when the moderator told him his speech was over, even though he should have gotten more time. And the moderator, the only reason the moderator let Alibaba speak is because he felt pressure by the audience, because everyone's like, come on, like, it's clearly time for this guy to speak. So the consequences of Alibaba's actions were that he generated sympathy from the audience by being a gentleman and simply asking for his turn to speak. If he had been, overly aggressive, assertive, things might have been different. The audience would have been like, "Hey, dude, calm down." Instead, he generated sympathy from the audience. He showed respect for the moderator and the structural constraints of the forum. And even though he wasn't allowed to fully express his opinion, it is possible that other people thought to themselves, "Hey, this guy seemed like he had a lot to say, and he wasn't able to finish. Maybe I should go up and talk to him afterwards." Or, "Hey, that guy, the moderator's really a jerk, right? Like, what did you want to say?" So it's possible that his plan or his ideas could be fully expressed in at another time. Lastly is the universal, and mostly we're going to talk about the setting and how this can create or damage ideas in personal development. So many gatherings, such as workshop panels, forums, meetings, etc., are meant to be a gathering for communities, and they're supposed to be a forum for open communication. And in the textbook it says that you don't really think much of these. Like, the public doesn't really think much of these. It's not really like, oh my gosh, it's such a groundbreaking thing. It's more for the people who are in the meeting, honestly. And just a little bit about the structure. Moderator has the power over the audience. The moderator can be neutral or moderate, which is ideal. He can also be purposefully discriminatory, which is what we saw in Alibaba's case. He purposefully discriminated against someone, whether that's, a guy not letting a girl speak because she's a girl, or someone not letting an African American person speak because they're African American. The moderator can just be awful, to be perfectly honest. Or they could just be inexperienced. They could just be super overwhelmed and not sure, and, not intentionally trying to be mean, but they could just be inexperienced. And, the moderator kind of has all the power in that situation. It's important for individuals to be able to express their opinions in front of an audience. Like I said, the gathering is more for the individuals in the meeting, because they need to express their opinion, and they need to let other people know how they feel. Being denied this opportunity can create feelings of inadequacy, rejection, and it can psychologically harm or stun a person. If you really want to speak and you're not being allowed to speak, you may start to think, maybe I'm not worth the time. Maybe my words aren't great. Maybe I shouldn't be allowed to speak. And then it's going to discourage you from speaking up in the future. And that's just going to stunt you as a person. New ideas that are encouraged can be constructive and promote some sort of positive change. Ideas that are not allowed to be expressed or developed can be missed opportunities for progressiveness. You never know when the next good idea is going to come, especially in a meeting like this. You never know if someone's really on top of their game and has done their research and is super articulate and intelligent, and you may just be completely passing up that opportunity for an awesome change, whether it's small or big. So that's the end of situation 4, and good luck with everything else. Bye.
Hi, my name is Shanique Bigelow, and I'll be discussing Situation 5 out of Textbook 2, Chapter 2. In this scenario, it talks about how people experience stress from different dimensions of life. As they try to manage stress, it may unwillingly or willingly spill over into other areas. An example of this is a person receives a bad evaluation at work. A balanced solution is correcting it, fighting it, or containing the situation at the workplace. An unbalanced solution, which can be called displacement, is finding someone to vent one's disappointment or anger to. Now, displacement is a natural defense mechanism against anxiety. In the particular, in this situation, one day Alibaba had a few obstacles he attempted to overcome. One, running late in the morning, which he thought him being late was going to make his daughter late to homeroom, which eventually she did not because she ran to homeroom. Another is finally he gets to work and had a disagreement with his coworker, which he decided to diffuse and not bring attention to the supervisor. So they settled it amongst each other. Now at work, he also discovered that a project he's been working on might have not been able to take it to the level that he wanted to. So his work was all done for nothing. Another one was on his way home. He stopped and listened to the radio, and he heard that his stock had crumbled. And he thought to himself, maybe he should have, sold into his stock a few days ago when the markets were high in trading. Now, arriving home 30 minutes later than usual, his wife opens the door and asks why he was late. He gave no response, and he had a bad expression on his face. Now, sitting down for dinner, he exploded at his wife for making more than needed for their small family. His excuse was, she didn't know how to prepare the food in proportions so they wouldn't have leftovers, and he started asking about her, questioning her intelligence, belittling her. And this is what occurred in the particular. Now, the discriminator in this scenario was Alibaba, the wife, and the daughter. Now, the reasons being for Alibaba is that he might have suffered from some unfair discrimination on the different scenarios that happened during his day. The reason why the wife became a discriminator, he became a discriminator towards his wife is because he made her frustrated. At the doorstep, he came, walked right in with no response, mad expression on his face for no reason, ignored her. Then he gave her no appreciation for her concern on why he was late or any appreciating for her making dinner before he got home. He also made her feel like she was the problem, like he's so mad because of her and her questioning. Also, he created unnecessary tension for his family. Now, he was a discriminator to his daughter because he made her life a little difficult after arguing, brought fear to the child, and she wasn't able to eat her food, consume her food properly, or to finish her homework for the next day for school. Now, the victims in the story were the wife and the daughter and Alibaba. As I said before, the wife was the victim because she became a target for Alibaba to vent the anger he had accumulated during that day at work or just during his day period. And the result ended of him reciprocating his anger to the wife instead of being good to her, for her cleaning up, for her preparing the meal, taking care of the daughter. And in return, she felt sorrowful. She had tears, and also she was restless that night in bed. How the daughter was a victim was because she ate dinner quickly, didn't let it digest, went to lay down, and she felt uneasy because of her parents' argument. And she consumed her food very fast. And Alibaba was obviously a target at the beginning, or a victim at the beginning, because he was subjected to all the bad things that occurred during his day. And this sums it all up for section 5 in textbook 2, chapter 2. And this is just the first part. Thank you.
So, briefly going over chapter 2, we're on victim part 2. We see that the daughter was a victim as well to the argument or the outrage that her father brought home with the mother. She only ate a bit of her meal. She ate it really quickly because she just didn't want to be in the environment. She also ended up going to bed without doing her homework. because she did need assistance, but since the parents were so argumentative and doing their own thing, she was too fearful to ask for help. So being victimized, the daughter had went to bed with little dinner, unfinished homework, and worry about her parents, which caused a sleepless night. Moving on, the outrage that the father did kind of put the family into a pointless test. They say in a relationship, any kind of relationship, that arguments, tension, stress can cause damage to the relationship, to either whether it's family or marriage. Each day that occurs, it can lessen the chances of their bond. So the same goes for a family. Like I said, the small arguments or necessary fallouts can slowly break a family apart. Just like relationships, encouragement, empowerment, and mutual support can help keep a bond strong and everlasting. So instead of thinking about himself, he could have just thought about how the mother would feel and the daughter would feel about him outraging. So after victim, we do have the compromise, which helped the situation not really escalate as far as the argument, which could have led maybe to some kind of violence. But even though the family could not prevent the incident from occurring, there were still compromises that kept the situation in proper perspective, like such as the wife kind of remained calm, said a few things, but not too much to boil, over the husband. She kind of had an idea why his frustration would occur over some dishes, which probably behind it was more. And then, as well as the complete avoidance would make the father equally unhappy. Either or, it's like. So yes, the wife did take the verbal bullets. She was the bigger person, and the outcome, I guess it could have been, he could have still been furious for the few words she did say, or if she didn't confront him, she would be mad that she wasn't, I guess, communicating with him or involved in what he has to say. Also, the daughter's compromise could have confronted her father. She could have at least interrupted, like, Dad, why are you yelling at mom, and so forth. But then again, children are taught not to be involved in grown folks' conversations or argument. So it was kind of like it could have been a lose-win situation. She could have said something that would have made him more angry, or as she did, kept calm and make him less aggressive. I'm not too sure. So with both parties playing the role, the daughter to avoid the situation and the wife to say barely anything, the husband finally can take a step back and clearly view his total lack of justifiable cause to the situation, that it really wasn't worth it. And then by him doing that, the wife can see that he outraged because of something from work and not because the dishes weren't done or the small stuff like that. So that's what compromise is all about. So we get down to the universal, which they pretty much say the most common defense mechanism is displacement, which begins with an original source of anxiety, where one's fundamental interest lies. So one is likely to find non-threatening targets somewhere else to vent one's disappointment, frustration, and anger. So they might find someone else, I guess, not weaker technically, but someone that really will just take the bullets. So that's another defense mechanism. They'll find someone weaker than them to take all their anger and frustration out. Also, discrimination in the form of displacement can be either random or habitual. So there's two different kinds of discrimination that we're going to talk about. It's going to be random and habitual. So like I was saying before, not a weak person, but maybe an easier target. That would be random discrimination. A random discriminator may pick up an easy target for his or her expressive output. So like I said, it'd be someone less weaker that they know that won't say anything back to them or anything brutal, that they can kind of just take their anger out and frustration. Also, a random discriminator can become quite explosive toward his or her one-time victim. So just any person, they would just wrong place, wrong time type of thing. If you're there and you happen to run into a person that's angry, you're pretty much going to be taking those verbal beating by them. Also, we have habitual discrimination, which on the other hand may turn to the same target for release of anxiety. So this would be, I like to think of it as like a family member, like say you're always angry and you always leash out on your sister because she's always there and you know that you can easily get to her or whatever and you can easily vent out and she won't do nothing. Also, a habitual discriminator may keep a proper perspective with his or her regular target. So it would be like the same thing every day. Alright, so kind of concluding everything. So we know reaction to victimization due to displacement varies widely from forced acceptance, passive acknowledgement, and codependency to universal compromise.